The mysterious bounty hunter from the original Star Wars movies known as Boba Fett is a fan favorite. Boba Fett's costume is incredibly complex and differs in between his various appearances. Over the last few decades, diehard fans have spent countless hours recreating his costume. This video will focus on the differences of well-known versions of the costume. The Empire Strikes Back, or ESB, Return of the Jedi, or ROTJ, and Special Edition, or SE. The easy-to-spot difference is the color palette. In The Empire Strikes Back, the costume is primarily painted green, whereas in Return of the Jedi, there are various reds and other colors thrown in. These costumes are the primary focus of Boba Fett fans because they are the only three that ever made it to the silver screen. These are also the three costumes the 501st Legion primarily covers. Learning the full history of the costumes fully explains why different versions exist. The history of the costume reaches far beyond the scope of this video, so for now, just know that there were two makers. The first maker was Joe Johnston, who worked on the first two iterations alongside concept artist Ralph McQuarrie. When finished with his second version, he sent it to Sandy Doivetter of Daydream Productions to make 3 copies. Those 3 were not as much copies as they were variations, using the costume received as a rough guideline. ESB and ROTJ have different helmets, one painted by Joe and one painted by Sandy. Neither helmet share the exact same colors or damage. There are a few physical differences between the two helmets. The ROTJ rangefinder is missing the small black square on the bottom side of the clear block. In addition to that, the clear block is a slightly different shape. There are 2 very small dental files attached to the key slots on the rear of the ROTJ helmet to add some extra levels of detail. Physical damage is quite hard to see, but exists on both helmets. The ESB helmet has a few small deep scratches in the helmet itself, but overall it's fairly smooth. The ROTJ helmet is covered with scratches, scrapes, and cuts. A different type of physical damage also occurred to the ESB helmet at some point during pre-production. Looking at the helmet, the right side of the brow is slightly warped. Boba Fett's undersuit is a custom-made flight suit. It has 2 pockets on the thighs, pockets on the shins, and an extra set of sleeves. ESB is a blue-gray color, whereas ROTJ is just gray. Over top sits a flak vest made of thick, shiny twill. Other soft parts that share the same pattern but different in color include the gloves, which are darker in ESB, the girth belt, which is a deeper red in ESB, the side pouches, which match the flight suit on ESB, but are 2 different shades of brown in ROTJ, and the cape, which in ESB is a beige fabric with a painted orange stripe, whereas in ROTJ is a green army half shelter cut to shape. The braids hanging from the shoulder vary in quantity, length, braid style, and color between the costumes. The ammo belt consists of a wide faux leather belt with individual pouches. ESB has 7 pouches, 2 with a snap on the front. The pouches are placed on the sides of the belt. ROTJ has 8 pouches, with no gaps. The boots are the same on both costumes, with the addition of gray spats on ROTJ. The pockets on the shins contain 4 slots for various tools. The sonic beam weapon and anti-security blade are on all costumes, and only vary with their orientation in the pockets. The survival knife and jetpack adjustment tool are visible on ESB. Both costumes feature the EE-3 blaster. This is built from a World War I Webley Mark VI flare gun. The ESB blaster is closer to the original flare gun and is likely using a real gun as a base. The ROTJ blaster features different details, as well as being a rubber cast rather than a real firearm. This was probably done to make it lighter and to make multiple blasters for stunt versions. Why the blasters differ in appearance is uncertain. The ESB blaster features more of the original flare gun charm, such as a brass handle, wooden stock, and metal appearance. Added on are a few greeblies, a scope, a sling, and barrel extension. The ROTJ blaster is more heavily modified and painted all black. It features different greeblies in roughly the same location, as well as a differently designed barrel featuring T-tracks. The ESB costume features a sidearm that's never utilized in the film. Tucked away in a hard plastic holster, the sidearm is a repurposed Technisub Pulse 40 spear gun. The jetpack shape is the same on both costumes, but the paint jobs are widely different. ESB is almost entirely green, with a large scuff in the middle. The ROTJ pack is very colorful and features many levels of damage and detail. Also featured on the ROTJ jetpack are various hookups for pro paint and special effects, as the pack used was an early prototype for when Boba's flamethrower was actually going to be functional, as well as the costume having other special effects. As we know, there were two primary makers of Boba Fett. Joe is credited with the ESB helmet and Sandy with the ROTJ helmet, but neither are known for any screen-used armor. We assume Joe painted the ESB costume, as the painting techniques and ideas greatly resemble those of a pre-production version that we know he painted. When it comes to ROTJ, we do not actually know who painted the armor. Years of research and careful examination of photos show us that the ROTJ armor is bits and pieces of previous sets, including some ESB, that were repainted over by an uncredited artist. All the armor plates have the same base shape. What differs are the dents in paint. ESB armor has less paint chipping as well as a lighter color green compared to ROTJ. The ROTJ plates are split into two groups, Hero and Stunt. The stunt plates have made their way into the public eye at museums where the costume was on display. The differences are minimal. Hero has an extra dent on one of the chest plates, and the exact shape of the paint chipping varies slightly between Hero and Stunts. The Hero ab plate shows some green paint chipping, which happens to be the original color of the painted over plate. Overall, they resemble themselves enough to be grouped together as ROTJ, with Hero generally just having an extra dent. The cod plate's dent is virtually unchanged between ESB and ROTJ. The kidney and back plate vary as well, however, less media exists of them to fully show the differences. The shoulders and knees mostly resemble each other between films. ESB has two primary different colors, with the right shoulder and knees being a similar dark orange, and the left shoulder being a pale yellow. ROTJ is yellow with an orange overspray on both knees and shoulders. In terms of dents, the knees are very similar and may be unchanged. The left shoulders on both costumes do not feature any dents, but the skull logo painted on differs slightly in design. The right shoulder on the ESB costume has a much more aggressive and larger dent than ROTJ. The gauntlets vary a little more than just in paint. While the shape and size of the gauntlets is unchanged, ROTJ features an enclosed and much more simple flamethrower with two additional push buttons. Other small differences exist in the stunt gauntlets, such as a possible switch extruding from the left gauntlet. ROTJ also features two additional hoses and a less detailed whipcord housing module on the right gauntlet. ESB features a small light at the front of the same gauntlet. Greeblies, such as the keyboard, darts, rocket, dental expander, and switches are the same and unchanged physically on both versions. You may be wondering where Special Edition is in all of this mess. Well, now that you know the general reasoning behind the costume changes and the differences between them, you can understand why Special Edition exists. The Special Edition, or SE, was released in 1997 with Boba Fett added into scenes in both A New Hope and Return of the Jedi. No new costumes were made for Special Edition despite these additional scenes being filmed much after the originals. In order to do this, they had to dig the costume out of the archives after sitting in there for many years. Unsurprisingly, this resulted in a costume that is a mishmash of other versions. The majority of the costume is a ROTJ hero, with the exception of the plates being ROTJ stunt, the helmet being ESB, and the left knee being that of a pre-production costume that was not used in either film. SE also has a varying amount of ammo pouches. Depending on the promotional material or scene, the belt may have had 8, 12, 13, or 14 pouches. Some of these have slightly different sized flaps due to being from previous, older versions of the costume. The braids on the shoulder are also different from ROTJ and ESB. The final difference between SE and ROTJ is time. The costume sat in storage for many years, as well as went through filming in the desert for ROTJ. This leads to a bit of decay and broken parts. Most notably, the right gauntlet is missing 2 hoses, and looking at some of the promotional material, you can see where they snapped off. During the promotional photo shoot, one of these hoses was attached to the rocket via duct tape. Additional scrapes and scuffs are visible on most of the costume, as well as the vinyl color on the ammo belt chipping away. Boba Fett's costume is incredibly complex. The history of the costume and reasoning for some of these decisions go much deeper than the scope of this video. New information and newfound parts are still being discovered, and links are still being made, so don't take this video as a complete guide that will always be accurate. I still encourage you to research the costume on your own and look out for these differences and others. If you're wanting to create a Boba Fett costume, it'll be less of a headache down the road to research now.